Welcome back into Divided We Fail, a front porch political chat podcast. Today's a fun one. We're in the holiday season, and we're going to talk Santa's sleigh, aka drones. Drones over New Jersey. It sounds like a Martin Scorsese film. It is not. It is real life. And on the topic of drones over New Jersey, we're also going to dive into some conspiracy theories. We're going to have a little fun with this one. We've gotten a little heavy the past couple episodes, so we're going to lighten it up a little bit. With that, I will introduce my two co-hosts. James, how was your week? How are you doing?
It was good. I won a 12 leg parlay, getting the little bit of degenerate going with me. Bet $1, won 179 because I cashed out because I'm dumb. But we do things like that around here.
Yeah, cashing out is the coward's take.
And if I didn't, the Packers lose by 40. So
Cody, your week. How are you?
Good. Just wishing we had more snow, unfortunately, because we have zero.
That's so crazy. That's
It
wild.
is.
Because
I will bring you a fucking
it
box.
makes me angry. Because you want to know why, Cody? I'll tell you why it makes me angry. We went down there on Friday, and we had to drive through a literal whiteout to get there because you know how it is in Pulaski Parish. And
Yeah.
then on Sunday, we go down to Oneonta to watch the Steelers and Eagles games. And then we had to drive back through a whiteout all the way to Syracuse. So like the snow is happening all around you. It's just not happening where
Just
you
not
are.
here.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I've never it's
I mean,
Do you still
the
snowboard?
the forecast said I haven't snowboarded in 7 years. I would love to, but we need snow for that to happen. We didn't have it last year either.
That's fair. I was mainly a curiosity question than anything else.
I would love to. I have a snowboard I've used approximately twice, but I would
Does
love to use some more.
does Kate enjoy the snow?
Yeah, loves it. Every bit of it.
And it just does Steph ski or snowboard?
Nope.
Nope.
She said
Okay.
she'd be willing to learn to ski.
Well, I want to learn to ski. So if she wants to learn to ski, we can learn to ski together.
I'd also be willing to learn to ski. I would love to do anything on a mountain. I don't really care. I just
Apparently,
want to
it's supposed to
know.
be pretty easy for you and I because we can ice skate. It's people say if you can ice skate, then you can ski. So
Makes sense.
we'll figure it out. But
Cody, I
anyways,
just want you to keep that same energy when next time we get 5 feet of snow and I pay someone to bring a dump truck down to your house and dump it in your driveway.
and the best
Yeah, I would
part
have a
is
field day.
he doesn't have to pay the dump truck to fill it up. He just has to park it.
Yeah, just park the dump. I got a CDL. Just park it out front of my house. I'll bring it back when I'm done.
There you go. Throw a little bit of water on top so it doesn't blow out the back, and then on the way to Syracuse it goes.
Yeah, I will dump it everywhere.
Um, you, everywhere. How are you gonna do that?
Multiple dump trucks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, because the neighborhood that Cody lives in is like very tight, like it's like neighbor next to neighbor next to neighbor. It'd be so funny to like drive through the neighborhood and like it's green grass, 5 feet of snow, green grass, green grass.
Oh,
Cody's out there having the time of his life, just like wrapped in a scarf and a fucking in a beanie, just building the snowman.
Yeah,
They
you do
drive,
wonderful.
they drive by. They're like, "Oh, he's rich, rich. He's got his own snow."
and 3 bathrooms.
What people don't know is that he created a vendetta with his podcast co-hosts, and they paid to ship snow to him.
Uh,
All right, drones. James, you said that you in the pre-show, you said that you have I can't remember the exact verbiage, but basically that you have been leaning into this topic. So I will give you the floor to start the discussion and educate us on drones over New Jersey.
so in Maryland, um,
Notably not New Jersey.
just yes. So apparently New York is they're over New York now too.
Yeah, it's like the
Um,
down the entire eastern seaboard really.
so we I kept seeing things about drones, and it it brought me down a dark place. I didn't read it. So the world's ending. We're all gonna die. But from what I've seen, it's people are seeing a bunch, and they're kind of traveling in like flocks, I guess, of low flying drones. Some have said they're about the size of a car. A man shot one down and got arrested. There was one in New Jersey, I think, that crashed. And
I would be very curious as to what the charges pending against that individual are.
The Logan Airport people?
No, the guy who shot the drone down and got arrested.
Oh, because I know that a couple people got arrested in Boston for flying drones over Logan Airport.
Sure, because really any airspace that is prohibited, that's not drastically alarming.
Right.
But yeah, sorry, James,
uh,
continue.
this Google search is the greatest. So I had Googled the drones, the crash, to see what it is. And you know how they give you like a list of searches that people have done? Someone searched what's up with all the drones. So that's fun. I don't know. People are freaking out. I've seen a lot of videos on TikTok about they are just flying around, and I guess they can turn their lights off. The FAA said whoever's doing it is in FAA regulations. Um, a lot of people have said it's foreign countries. Other people have said it's just people who are playing with drones.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing is Americans are freaking out over this, like it's mega important. Uh, Personally, I think it's just the military, and I wouldn't say an active, this isn't the Cold War. We're not like actively preparing to fight another country, but we are having tiffs with Russia, and I feel like we're always having tiffs with China, where if American military is building something and working on drones, they're not going to come out and say it. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's just the military's working on drones. They're trying things out. It is what it is. Just kind of let it go. Um, Although I think the most impressive thing I've seen so far is something called Project Bluebeam, where the I guess the theory is is that um, countries are making us think that an alien invasion is coming and try and convince everybody to, I guess, unite into a one world government,
Okay.
which is just wild. That's wild thought to me, but it was brought up by this guy named Sergey Monast,
It's Serge Mon.
conspiracy theorist.
It's Serge Monet, but he's French Canadian.
Yeah, so good for him. Um,
Good for him.
I don't know, like I tried, um, but it's just I don't know. I feel like it's too far of a stretch.
Uh,
I'm not really sure.
yeah. Because I don't really trust. Not trust, but I don't believe that the government can even coordinate a fucking private meeting without somebody leaking it, let alone coordinating a mass drone hysteria. I mean, I think I've said before and expressed myself to you guys in saying that I think it, if it's not the government itself testing out new stuff, then it is DoD contractors and aeronautical companies testing out new things and just not expressing that, because for Christ's sake, we had a fucking weather balloon over the country and they shot it out of the sky. There is no way that they would let unknown drones just fly all over the eastern seaboard without a whim or anything if they weren't registered with the FAA in some capacity, and B, weren't known entities. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So people have short-term memory, I understand that, but like the idea that any government would just allow, like, they would just scramble jets. It's the eastern seaboard, man. They could have those out of the air in like 2 seconds.
And they're
Especially not over
saying,
FAA airspace or military airspace. There's no way.
Right.
to not shoot them down and all this other stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it just feels like something's going on, and I don't think it's a nefarious thing. I think they just have a new technology they're working out
Yeah.
that they don't want leaked.
Exactly. That's 100% what it is. It's probably something that like Lockheed or Boeing or somebody's working on, and then that's why they're like, don't shoot them down, because each drone might be worth $270,000 in investment, and they don't want it to be fucked.
That is a small estimation of the investment that each one of those things would cost. But yes, your point stands.
Right.
Right. In that all of this realistically is just very expensive to manage on behalf of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take a significant amount of effort to prevent people from doing these things and prevent chaos. And at the same time, they would have no problem shooting it down themselves if it wasn't going to cost them money to shoot it down or escalate something that didn't need to be escalated.
Right.
And one of the things that really blows my mind, if you go back and look, I have found nothing on sightings on Thanksgiving Day, but there was day before and there has after.
Right.
So that tells me one thing: they were off for the holiday.
Right.
At this rate, see if anybody sees them on Christmas, and if you don't, guess what? They're manned drones. I don't think aliens are celebrating Christmas.
Right.
You know, it just feels it just feels like everybody's freaking out, and the government's trying to downplay it in an attempt to quiet the hysteria. You know
Well,
what I'm saying?
well, yeah, it's one of the main reasons why I don't believe that if there ever was an alien communication, like confirmed alien communication, that they would ever just flat out be like, "Yep, here's the alien overlord. He's gonna have a speech now because people can't handle it. They can't even handle drones."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times, and this could just be the fact that I'm a super nerd when it comes to philosophy and things like that. But like, one of the most overlooked like thought experiments and theories is Occam's razor. Are you familiar with Occam's razor?
The simplest explanation is often the correct explanation.
Correct. Yes. And so the simplest explanation is that it's fucking people flying drones and the government doesn't want you to know what the drones are. That's the simplest. The idea that it would be alien, I mean, it's just crazy. I understand that it coincides with the fact that there's been a lot of revelations involving aliens with the government, like admitting that there are UAPs and admitting that there are things that are kept secret that the U.S. has possession of and all this other stuff. But that doesn't mean there's not a 1-to-1 ratio here. Like, also, drones are pretty low tech considering that this would be a intergalactic species. What the fuck are they using like basic ass Nike drones for?
Right.
Like,
You think if they were coming to take us over, that's what they would use to trick us? Especially if they were an advanced species. That's just fucking ridiculous.
yeah, I'd be mad.
How is their overlord better than Trump or Biden? All I'm
Well,
saying is, what's their gas prices look like?
oh, we wouldn't have gas prices because they've mastered nuclear energy.
That's true. It's the price of a bag of Doritos.
I don't
I
know.
got questions.
That's
Say
fair.
if
I,
that's what it
I
is.
think I
I got
think it would be
questions.
worth an interview at least, a conversation.
Yeah,
Well, send
yeah.
us a
They could be
CV, a
like,
resume, and a cover letter.
Yes.
yeah, and like a snack box, like a healthy snack box. Yeah, I'm just saying, if they figured out a way where I can eat a bag of Doritos and not gain a single pound, that'd be fantastic.
Well, yeah, it's
Or like
called eat the bag of Doritos and go for a walk.
right, or a video representation of like what things in your particular country or world happen to look like. Like, give me like a 15-minute video breakdown, but I want statistics.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I just, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm gonna hear them out.
I would totally hear them out. We haven't been doing great, so I mean,
No,
I'll at least have a conversation. I'm open. I'm open to that. I just
yeah,
I don't think I guess in my heart of hearts, I wish people would think with their brains and not the internet, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like I feel like if the internet wasn't a thing, or if the internet was like more infantile, like back when we were like in high school and stuff, then this would not even be on the radar of what people thought was actually happening.
No, it would be on a conspiracy theory blog, but
Yeah, 4chan still exists, but it would be there for sure. But I mean, which goes,
just
I guess that leads into like what the main topic of tonight is, which is like other conspiracy theories. Are there any conspiracy theories that you guys actually like wholeheartedly like will die on the hill believe in?
I don't know. I don't think so. Give me a minute.
I just wanna add to Travis' thought here. According to Pew Research, approximately 54% of U.S. adults report getting news from social media.
Yeah, because we're chronically online.
Right, but not in like a way that is beneficial doing actual peer reviewed research. We're on social media getting our research from there, which just largely is not factual or helpful information for the most part.
No.
Um, One thing I'm willing to die on is that the mob killed JFK.
What's their motive?
They helped him get elected, and then he immediately sent his brother to go after organized crime.
Which mob?
Italian.
The Italian mafia, like the five families from New York?
Yes.
They helped a Massachusetts Bostonian
Mm.
Irish Catholic get elected president?
Yes.
I like the lack of confidence in your voice after I said that.
No, it's sorry, I was reading something. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And what was their reasoning for that?
Because JFK, you he helped or they helped him get elected
Right, but I'm saying why would they do that?
because immediately after he was elected, he said he was going to crack down on organized crime
No,
and
no,
put his
no.
brother
You're
in
you're
charge.
missing. You're jumping ahead. Why would they help him get elected? What was their motive there?
Fucking know what the whole idea was. I wasn't there.
These are important. You said you're going to die on this conspiracy theory, and I've just asked a simple question as to what reason does the Italian mafia have to prop up JFK? You know?
He probably told me he's going to go easy on crime.
Mm, Okay. I'm going to further research that. I like how some people think it was extraterrestrials.
That's
It even gets mentioned in Martin Scorsese's
okay.
2015 film The Irishman when
Here we
crime
go.
boss Russell Bufalino, played by Joe Pesci, ushers, if they can knock off a president, they can knock off the president of a union.
So
Oh, this ties into the Jimmy Hoffa conspiracy?
yes,
Oh,
that's what it was. Okay. Listen, I wrote a whole paper on this when I took intro to organized crime. Um,
you wrote a paper on the mob killing JFK?
yeah,
That's amazing.
die on that hill. Um, so JFK and his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, began a campaign to stop mob influence on the Teamsters labor union.
Yep.
So, what was the mob big in back then? Labor unions.
They've always been big in labor unions until like the 80s.
Well, so when someone threatens you, what do? Well, what do they do? Eliminate the threat. Because if you notice, the guy they used, Lee Harvey Oswald,
Who was also a
was
CIA asset.
had no family, and then they wanted to make sure he wouldn't talk, so they killed him shortly thereafter. So now there's no loose ends.
Hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a couple reasons why I would, I guess, not refute that or anything, but just express my doubts on that specific scenario. And that's because the mob is kind of one of those universally like damned if you do, damned if you don't organizations. There's almost always a rat or a spy inside the mob because they don't. If you notice, mobsters are never arrested for like petty crimes. They always wait until like they have like a
Rico.
massive RICO charge and then push them. So there's constantly bugs. There's constantly spies. There's constantly what's the word I want to use? Rats, like those kind of things inside of the mafia. And so something that big would have got, I feel like it would have gotten out to the FBI or to the Department of Justice or even to the NYPD. I mean, everybody's got assets inside the five families at some point. And also, um, well, at least in my studies of La Cosa Nostra, which I understand is a little different. It's the Italian, it's a truly Italian mob and not the American Italian mob. But they preferred to wield a, what's the word I want to use? A revenue based kind of yank over politicians. Like I think they would have sooner been like, yeah, we helped get JFK elected. He's a fucking crook, and like took his power that way than like brought the heat on the mob by shooting him. I mean, unfortunately, there's just no way to confirm or deny anybody's involvement because that's that case. I mean, they released the public records and what was that like? I think you would know. You wrote a paper on it. What 70% redacted?
More than 70, but yeah.
A lot of black ink on those documents.
Trump said he's going to release it all, so
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
if he does, I will read that.
So will I. I think everybody will.
Read that heavily. So you said you think it was the CIA?
No, no, I don't think it was the CIA. I mean, it's a very similar kind of. They're all the same conspiracy theory. It's like JFK was like particularly being an asshole to like this one group, and they would have reason to. So like everybody's looking for motive. Like he specifically was like trying to undermine the CIA, especially after the Bay of Pigs situation. Like he was pissed about that, um, and he was in the process of like eliminating them as an independent agency, when he was killed. There's also the gold standard theory that he was going to, leave the Federal Reserve and go back to the gold standard. There's a whole bunch of stuff that it could be. I point to the fact that he's a CIA asset because the CIA also was in cahoots with the mob. So there's a bunch of theories that all kind of like tie together and they kind of overlap, and it's like where does one start and the other begin? I do like the fact that it ties into Jimmy Hoffa because Jimmy Hoffa is like one of my favorite like mob incidents in the world. They like straight up got away with murder and nobody even really cares, just because they hid the body really well,
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild because no one knows. They still don't know where he is.
Yeah, where's Jimmy? There's people think he's like buried under like St. Patrick's Cathedral and shit. It's like stupid.
I saw someone said he was buried under a giant stadium.
Yeah,
Was it Yankee Stadium?
under Giant Stadium in New Jersey, which would be hilarious because they rebuilt it. So,
They just slid it out of the way. They're like, eh.
but well, both of those stadiums have been rebuilt, so they would have had to have been unearthed in the process. No, actually, it's Milwaukee Brewers. What am I talking about? Jimmy Hoffa may be buried at site of demolished MLB stadium. The alleged burial site is next to the current Milwaukee Brewers stadium.
I mean, the other theory about Jimmy Hoffa is that he was dissolved in a chemical vat in a Detroit factory, which is why his body has never been found.
That's the most plausible, in my opinion.
I mean, that's what most investigators believe is the most plausible as well.
Yeah, especially given that you're talking about the Teamsters, so you have access to like anything that you want. Like,
yeah.
I mean, all you have to, if you put a body inside of like one of those big industrial drums of just like lye, which is the base of soap, for 6 hours, there's nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So I mean, Cody, when we were chatting, did you find something that you're hard on?
I mean, not particularly. I found a few that are more
interesting.
Yeah, they're like more of my favorites, like the conspiracy theory about Mount Rushmore and that there's a secret cavern behind it, and that's where the United States government hides all of their prized possessions and other things, artifacts. Some people think alien bodies. Like, yeah, I think that one's funny.
Didn't they like bring that up in one of the national treasures?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then Area 51 makes me laugh.
I love Area 51. I do.
Right, like,
I really do.
I enjoy that one. One that I seem to find is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Continue on Area 51, and I'll go to this.
Oh, next. I was saying because it's rooted in fact, because like it's come out that
Right.
Area 51 is like our top secret aeronautical testing site, and so like there absolutely is weird shit happening there, but it's just weird shit that we paid for.
Right. The one that's very interesting and weird to me is the Stanley R. Mickelson Safeguard Complex.
Okay.
Which is in North Dakota. It's a military facility designed to detect incoming Soviet missiles. The main building, shaped like a pyramid, cost about $500 million. It became a place of interest. It opened October 1st, 1975, and then shut down the next day after 24 hours of being open.
Oh.
Right. People suspect it's the Illuminati's headquarters, which I think is just fucking ridiculous.
Well, the Illuminati don't exist, so...
Right.
The Illuminati...
I'm curious as to what is in the building.
Fuck Dan Brown.
Shut down after a day. But
I don't mean that. Dan Brown's a great literary artist. It's just his stupid ass Angels and Demons, or whatever it's called. Well, the Angels and Demons was the third one. What was the first one? The Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code, man. Like, nobody ever even thought... The Illuminati existed for 10 years. In all of history, they existed for 10 years. It is more plausible that the Masonic Temple is, like, the root cause of the secret government cabal of the world, because they've been around since, like, the beginning of recorded history. Not really, but, like, the Masonic institutes and Masonic brotherhoods go back to, like, the Institute of Masonry, which is, like, in Roman times. So, like, you could have... There's a length of time where they could have ceded power, and done things they want to. Really, it's just another Elks Club, but they have a cool handshake. Um, but man, the Illuminati just gets me so mad because there's
because
like
it's ridiculous.
it's ridiculous, and there's like really cool history behind it, and it only lasted 10 years. And like during those 10 years, like there really was like crazy stuff that was like going to happen, but like it just because of Dan Brown and because of the Da Vinci Code, people are like the Illuminati, and I'm like, you don't even actually know the history of the Illuminati. That makes me mad. So what's your other one?
Oh, I mean, those were really it. Like those were the ones that I found to be the most interesting. There's really none that I'm willing to die on a hill for because I just think it's. I mean, any number of things could be true. We're not going to have access to that information unless a lot of shit gets leaked really quickly.
True.
So there's nothing that really like I'm willing to back up that intently. What about you?
I think you both know which one I subscribe to.
Does
Um,
it involve the letters GB and the numbers 9 and 11?
yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a big 9/11 was an inside job guy. There's just a lot of like, and I understand once again, Occam's razor. I understand that I sound stupid when I say it, and maybe it's because I watched Loose Change at a very malleable time in my life, but like there's just a lot of stuff that lines up that doesn't make any sense, like the fact that they are the only two skyscrapers in the history of the world to get hit by a plane and collapse. Like that's fucking weird. The fact that there's no real imagery or photographic anything of the plane that hit the
Pentagon?
Pentagon, the fact that they just so happened like one of the most asinine things that I think really made me start questioning it was when I started looking into how they ID'd the pilots, and one of the things was that somebody had quote picked up a passport on the streets of New York, which you're telling me that this jet fuel that burned so hot that it melted the steel structure of the World Trade Center, which was, by the way, built to be hit by planes because I don't know if you guys are aware, but it was the tallest building in the world for a while. So it was built to be struck by things. And so this structure that was built that way, such a hot flame that it completely broke down the entire structure of that building. But this dude's passport dropped 150 stories and landed in the middle of like 34th Street. I'm not buying that. And like the insurance claims, the fact that they moved Donald Rumsfeld to the or not Donald Rumsfeld. Was he the Secretary of Defense or was it no Dick Cheney was the Vice President? So yeah, it was Donald Rumsfeld to the other side of the building like 5 minutes before, and like there was like no reason for it. They just came in and were like, "Sir, follow me." Like that. There's multiple reports from the Pentagon of like that happening, and so like there's just a whole bunch of shit. And I understand I'm fucking probably like way out of league, and I know that about myself. I know that it's just like a little like fun toy that I play with to like I don't know. Maybe it's like a trauma response, but either way,
Cat that pretends that the toy mouse is real.
yeah, yeah. Like I have fun with it. I mean, I'm not gonna like.
I'm not gonna lie. I agreed with you on that theory for a long time. Um, there was just too many questions that couldn't be answered,
Yeah,
and like that you brought up a couple things. Do you know why the towers collapsed?
because they were blown up.
According to FDNY, who I trust more than Michael Moore, considering they were there. Um, the the engines fell through the elevator chutes and hit a bunch of structures on the way down, like it acted like a bouncy ball.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that's what actually caused it, weakened the buildings and allowed the collapse, I
So
guess.
I would and that's. I mean, I'm not saying that's not something that could also happen. When you think about it, you're looking for a reason why these incredibly strong buildings just collapsed. The reason why I don't buy that, and the reason, and I'm not, I want to make sure that I believe the firemen. I believe that the engines, the motors of the elevators did fall down the elevator shaft and probably pinged and ponged their way down and caused immense damage. I do not believe for 1 second that that would cause a 180-story building to fall in literal free fall, because if you put a similarly sized building frame by frame next to the World Trade Center and you do an implosion, which is when they demo them, they fall in the exact same speed, which means that they're in free fall, which is an implosion, which means they're being blown up floor after floor underneath it to make it so that way it collapses in on itself. And so it's just like, if I feel like if it was a structural failure, there would have been structural points that held. Like, for instance, if the four floors that were on fire, those steel beams weakened to the point, and you would have saw like a crunch, a bend, and then a fall. Or if it had been the elevator shafts, right? Like, I feel like a side of the building would have stayed up, like maybe like 15 floors instead of the whole thing just collapsing into a pile of rubble. There's a whole bunch of things, and like you can look at other like skyscraper collapses and just like try and compare the two. And I understand that they're like not completely different, but like they're different scenarios, and there's a myriad of things that can go wrong. But like, for it to be the only time in the history of the world that a skyscraper has completely fallen at a free fall rate in history, there's a lot to that makes me play with the theory.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. The biggest, I think, if you remove the Pentagon attack, there's a lot more or a lot less of a. It feels less inside job. The Pentagon is what throws me, because you would think there would be a picture of that plane somewhere.
Yeah, the most surveilled building on Earth.
Like, and I mean, I get it was moving fast. Like,
They don't move that fast.
I get it, but like, it looked more like an explosion than a plane. You know what I'm
Exactly. And
saying?
also, like, I mean, we all know enough to know like what planes are made out of, and we also, you can watch the same crash happen on video in New York, and you can see like the wings ripping off and like chunks of the plane flying all over the place. And there was like nothing. There was just a hole in the side of the Pentagon, and there wasn't even a fuselage. There was like nothing. They didn't. And what's crazy about, if you remember correctly, there was just the one hole in the side of the Pentagon, and there was nothing for like where the engines would have hit. And those are massive. There's 4 engines on a 787. So like, not those engines at however many tons that they weigh didn't do anything. Nothing there. You know.
Oh.
It, like, I don't mind being proven wrong. I've seen plenty of stuff where they're like, people are like, oh well, the steel can't break, and then like it's like a blacksmith, and he like isolates a steel rebar beam, and then he heats it up really hot, and then bends it with like his pinky, and like, I understand all that, but I'm not debating that it wasn't hot enough in there for steel to melt. I'm debating on whether or not hot steel on the 140th floor means that a 180-story building collapses. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you be shocked to your core if at the state office building, which is 11 stories tall, there was a fire that broke out on the ninth floor and then the whole building collapsed? Wouldn't you be like, what the fuck?
Well, I think that's where, because they said it was the floors collapsed, which, like, it didn't. Okay, so like the biggest thing I've heard was jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. It wasn't that it melted; it was that it weakened it.
Right, and then the theory from there is that the the level, because it happened with like another 20 levels above it, then those floors collapsed on themselves, which created the weight of the building constantly collapsing on top of itself, which threw the building into free fall. That's the theory, right? It's a constant. It created an unstoppable chain of the building's own weight smashing on top of itself, on top of itself, on top of itself, on top of
Yeah.
itself. And I've heard that theory. It's the most plausible theory to me. I haven't seen the physics on it yet, but it's a plausible theory. But there also becomes a point where the weight of the building versus the base foundation structure, like they offset, and it would. I mean, we've all broken down a sand castle before, and like eventually the pressure from the stand matches the pressure from the structure, and they kind of stop, which is why my biggest issue is the fact that it like completely disintegrated. It has nothing to do with like I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, I know that it was hot in there. I know that it could have bent the steel beams. I know that there was structural issues in the elevator shaft. Like I know all that stuff. It's just the fact that the building fell at free fall, and that's where all of my speculation comes from. That and the fact that there was no engine damage on the side of the Pentagon. Outside of those two things, if those two things can be explained to me, then I'm 100% like, yeah, okay, I'm 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 in. You got me. I'm not one of those crazy people who like said that like people from those flights like those flights actually like landed like at an adjacent airport, and all the passengers were like taken into like a secret NASA air hangar and shit. Like I'm not one of those people. That's fucking
Yeah.
psychotic. I just think that
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, it
I have
is.
questions about the Pentagon.
yeah,
That's my biggest thing is I have lots of questions about the Pentagon.
Yeah.
100%, 100%.
But
And like it doesn't. I definitely don't think it helps that very soon after 9/11, the government was caught red-handed lying about Iraq to get into that war, and so then immediately sows doubt. You're like, whoa, let's wait a second. Like, what the fuck?
What else you lied about there, my friend?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what else have you? And also, we are all taught about the Bay of Pigs invasion, which was an active. Like, I think it was like 50 or 60 Marines died because we faked this attack, or we're going to fake this attack. And I don't think they actually died. I think we were. I think that was what JFK was like. No, fuck off, because I think that the CIA was like, yeah, we'll just pretend to attack a naval vessel. Yeah, some sailors and Marines will die, but we'll have an excuse to invade Cuba. And he's like, what do you mean to just some, So it makes you think about like your government and like how what they'll do to achieve in a means.
Right. Have you seen The Diplomat at all on
Yes.
Netflix?
Yes.
It's just like that situation where uh, British government officials. This is a fictional show, people. British government officials blow up part of their own ship to regain confidence from, I think it was the Scottish, to remain part of, for to prevent Scottish independence.
Yeah, and there are myriad examples throughout history of governments staging false flag operations to garner public support for a conflict that they know that otherwise would have been denied.
that's fair.
I mean, people legit. There was a ton of evidence. Now, I don't want to say evidence, but intelligence that showed or suggested that the beginnings of the initial conflict in Ukraine with the Crimean Peninsula, like that was completely done by Russian Spetsnaz in order to garner support from the Russian public to invade Crimea. Because they're like, look at these extremists, they blew up the bridge or whatever it was, and it was like them doing it to themselves. So,
It makes you wonder, like, how much governments actually do that shit.
well, I mean, one of the or a couple of like the confirmed things are like, what was it, the Tuskegee experiment, where they like let black men just like die of syphilis right in front of them so they could study how it affected them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also, was it MK Ultra? That was like a real experiment that they did. And then there was another one I can't
That's
think of
with
it.
undercover spies, yeah,
I I I think so. There's one that's like
like sleeper
psychedelics.
spies. Yeah, I that was MK Ultra.
Human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. Central that developed procedures to identify or sorry, develop procedures to identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. Yeah, so this was
Right.
like the LSD stuff.
Well, and
Um,
like it does make you wonder, especially considering like the Stanford prison experiment, right? You guys know what that is? Pretty
yes,
familiar.
Yes.
yes,
They let a college professor do that and then parade around the country talking about what he had learned with almost no recourse.
right.
And that's
I mean,
well publicized.
Well, it's for
I
academia,
mean,
Cody. It can do no wrong.
don't get me wrong.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Like, I think there are some things that can be like things. So with the Stanford prison, the prison experiment, I feel like at first it wasn't done in malice, but he should have stopped the shit. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
It wasn't initially done in malice, but there was fucking virtually no oversight.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
the problem.
There was virtually no oversight. And then he didn't stop it. They had to quit. And then there was no recourse ethically.
no, and I think the biggest thing with like academia is you have to follow that code of ethics.
Right. Now there's the
Like,
Institutional Review Board.
you can
Yes.
get the best results in the world and like show people things and like open eyes and make a huge like breakthrough and change the world. But if you're not following code of ethics, it's not really worth it.
No. But now you have to meet the standards of the IRB, which is huge. And I get, right? Like, there are things that occur before organizations like the IRB exist, and you should still operate within what are humane, ethical means.
Yeah, because
Right.
that experiment got out of hand quick.
And I'll say though, not in defense of the experiment, but I do not think that the findings would have been so profound had we adhered to IRB standards, and because that's one of those things where like you can't find that out unless you put people under extreme circumstances per se.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it happened in the 70s because otherwise we never would have had that discovery or that theory, I guess you could say, because like psychology is one of those. I mean, it's a fluid entity. What applies to one does not apply to all.
Right.
But still, I mean, it goes to that authoritarian versus submissive ideology, and um, but those are the things that make you're they start to sow the seeds of doubt of how we get to where we are today. Where I know you jokingly brought it up in the pre show, James, but like Pizzagate, where like people are presented with this absolutely ludicrous ideology in theory that politicians, mainly from the left, are siphoning adrenochrome from babies and kids in order to like I don't know have magical powers, and the source of the prison for the kids that they're going to siphon from is in the basement of some popular pizza parlor in DC that doesn't even have a basement, and it leads to the point it gets so much traction and so much hysteria around it that it leads to a gunman actively shooting into the pizza parlor. Like it's just insanity, and I don't understand how we allow things to get that far. But then you think about the things the government has done, and then you're like, oh, I see how things get this far.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's
and I
it
think
too. Like the lack of transparency in really any circumstance really sows that seed of doubt so well that people don't know what to believe.
there's some though that there's some conspiracy theories that I look at and just go, you as a fully formed adult came to that conclusion?
Yeah, like harp.
Ugh, don't, don't. We're not doing this.
Okay.
Um, I oh, I will yell is what I'm telling you. Um, but like, there's still people that think that Cody, I don't know. You guys might not be as well informed on this topic as I have, but there are people that think that the 2001 Joplin tornado or 2011 Joplin
The
tornado,
like legendary EF5 that was like a mile and a
yeah,
half wide.
yeah,
Okay.
that one they're saying was
Jews?
created by, huh?
Was it Jews?
No,
Oh,
no,
well, that's
they
not fun.
were they were off that day.
Hmm.
Um, it was created by military radars in Alaska shooting radio waves to make that tornado as big as it was.
Oh, so you are talking about HARP.
Sort of, yeah.
I mean, that's what HARP is.
But these they say that about Joplin, right?
Yeah,
Meanwhile, 2 years later, there was a tornado twice the size,
yeah.
had stronger winds, stronger everything. It didn't hit anything, thank God. It killed two storm chasers. Actually, it killed a bunch of storm chasers, but it killed two prominent storm chasers. And no one's like, "Oh, Harp did that." Like, you know what I'm saying?
Cody, are you familiar with HARP?
Like, yes.
Limited,
Oh,
yes.
I thought you said Buddy. Sorry.
No, I said Cody. Yeah, so I just wanted to see because HARP is basically this institute in Alaska where they are specifically there to study the ionosphere, and the best way to communicate and study the ionosphere is through high frequency radio signals. And
Yeah, it looks
basically,
like a radio antenna farm. People think it's either a mind control site or something else because
or weather
people,
control is what.
right.
Yeah,
You
weather
think if we had the
manipulation.
fucking power to manipulate the weather, there would be hurricanes or tornadoes at all?
Well, there would be, but it certainly wouldn't. We would use it as a weapon of war. Like we wouldn't ever worry about like geopolitical consequences of on the world stage. If we could just control the weather, we would just flood China into submission, and then be like, "Oh, sorry, dude, that sucks, doesn't it?" And then you can use disaster to sow not or like revolution in a country because like you can just make things so bad through constant weather issues and things where you
You
just
could
overwhelm the support system of the government and then therefore people want to overthrow the government.
you could also use it to gain favor, in that if you created a drought for an entire country and
Yeah.
then made them rely on our resources,
Yep.
we could gain favor with those leaders and others. Yes, I hear you. I think it's preposterous that anyone can control the weather, other than the fact that we continue to contribute to dumb shit like climate change. Which,
Oh yeah. We're not.
if we stopped letting billionaires take fucking flights to space, maybe we wouldn't be so fucked.
We don't control the weather and yet we do control the weather. We do, you know what I mean? Like we can't
Yeah,
control like storms, but we are very much reaping what we sowed as far as the climate situation that we are in right now, where we have record high temperatures in the Gulf, leading to hurricanes that wipe out entire mountain villages.
or the fact that you have 3 feet of snow. I live an hour and 15 minutes away, and it's 40 degrees, and I have zero snow.
Well,
That's
let's preface that by
that's
saying that's
not
lake effect.
that's
That's
yeah.
It is lake effect, but right, the only reason you have snow is because of lake effect snow. I have
Yeah.
zero snow in what at points
oh,
has been
I see
considered the
what you're saying.
snowiest city in America.
I see what you're saying. You're saying it's December 17th. I have no snow, and were it not for the Great Lakes, you would also have no snow.
Right.
Context is important. I understand what you're saying now.
Yes. If
So
it weren't for lake effect snow, you guys would have none.
Yeah.
yeah. But I feel like you could make that argument most years.
Well, I mean, when we were growing up, we always used to get like the whole state used to get snow in like starting. You would be lucky if you didn't have like a dusting on Halloween, and now I'm not shocked at all if we're like we've had like multiple green Christmases in a row.
I mean, shit,
Um,
dude. I walked my dog on Halloween in a light hoodie, shorts, and flip flops.
Yeah, I went out in shorts. Yeah, for Halloween.
And for everyone who maybe is listening, not from where we live, I live in central New York. Not a place you would anticipate doing that on October 31st.
Correct.
so to clarify a couple things, Trav,
Yep.
Harp, they weren't blaming Harp, they were blaming a military base. They were saying the military created.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Harp is run by I think it's like the University of Alaska or something like that. It's a college. college ran thing.
Is it?
Um,
I thought it was a government
I'm
thing.
95% sure. Hold on, let me check. Scientific facility that studies ionosphere, highest part of the Earth's atmosphere. Purpose, features, observatory.
Oh yeah, University of Alaska Fairbanks program. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
That college has money.
and yeah,
Hmm.
apparently, we're not going to get back into colleges. Um, and oh wow,
I do
I
think it's
just
appropriate that the word for a college is like slush fund is called an endowment.
fair.
I'll let everybody else figure out what I mean by that, but it was a highbrow penis joke.
It was a highbrow penis joke.
I thought, yeah, okay. I was like 95% sure that's where you were going with it, and I'm like, eh, maybe it's just me. Um, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? We were talking about weather.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So if with the Tennessee tornado or hurricane, um, that more dials up to the speed at which the hurricane came ashore and how quickly it moved and just hit the worst spot possible because the mountains act as a like a squeegee and they pull all the rain down and then it runs down the mountains. Just to clarify. Um, that's why those mountain towns got hit. But yeah, like a lot of this weather shit I see, like the cloud seeding and all this other stuff. I'm just sitting here and I'm like,
Cloud seeding is real.
people, well, it's real, but they're saying that the government's using it to create tornadoes, create hurricanes. Cloud seeding is real, but what
Yeah.
you're doing is creating rain,
Right. Actually,
which,
what's funny about that is that government controlled weather manipulation has created one disaster, but it was in Saudi Arabia when they flooded themselves.
yeah, like,
Right, which is the situation that one would use that sort of power, not the other situations.
Right.
and one of those things, like the thing that it, so,
James is
Cody,
a
I don't know
weather
if you know
weenie,
this, but
so he's gonna fucking go off about this.
so it's not even that, it's just I see it more often because my Twitter feed is full of
Because you're a weather weenie. Just
weather weenie. Yeah, because I'm
yeah.
a weather weenie. Like the amount of people who like that's why when we talk about drones and stuff, I was talking to Cody. I was like, the amount of cynicism that people have for today's government, I feel like a thing like Project Bluebeam wouldn't even be possible
Right.
because nobody but trusts the government.
Right.
Right.
So, like, when I hear conspiracy theories of like, oh, the government's gonna mind control us and all this other stuff, I sit here and I go, no one trusts them anyways. So no one's gonna believe a damn word they have to say.
Correct.
That's why like a lot of these conspiracy theories just drive me nuts. But yeah, like the government isn't controlling your weather. They're not giving you extra tornadoes, extra hurricanes, and all that shit. Because even if they were, explain why we haven't had an EF5 tornado since 2013.
Right.
If they were truly trying to destroy stuff, they wouldn't have us on the longest drought without an EF5. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like it's like don't get me wrong, be skeptical of your government, like should be, but also don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Like, the earth is flat. We get it. Like,
100%,
Oh
dude.
dear
I
God.
believe that wholeheartedly.
do you really?
No, what the fuck? You
Oh,
think me? You think?
you sounded serious for a
I
second. I'm
knew
like,
you were joking, James, when I heard Travis back it up. I was like, nope, they're both fucking with me. This is nope.
okay,
Nope, nope, nope,
Cody,
nope, nope.
Cody, I'm gonna stop you right there. Okay, look at a map. What shape is the map?
James,
What kind of surface does it have? It has a flat surface.
look at a fucking globe.
Those
Stop
aren't
looking at
real.
maps on
First
the
of
Straight up.
internet.
all,
Stop.
the
Birds aren't
number
real.
one
Globes aren't
reason,
real.
the number one reason why I will never be a flat earther, and I don't even care if even though it won't be, I don't care if it's proven in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to believe it solely because its functional theoretical basis is in religion. People believe in the firmament. Their main purpose is they point to texts within the Bible and then reference that and then try and use physics, which they can't because the physics isn't there. But my point being is that the number one reason is because it's just not, no thanks.
No, it's not flat. That's preposterous.
Um, Rolling off of the conspiracy theories, have you guys ever heard of the FEMA death camps?
No.
I have not.
I thought that would be oddly appropriate given the situation with FEMA's complete lack of organization, given the disaster in Western North Carolina. But people think that that FEMA actually exists as kind of a color. It runs itself as a angel corporation in essence, where its job is to come in, give immediate funds without asking questions, help people rebuild their homes, blah blah blah. But people believe that it's a psyop to develop a false sense of trust in a government agency, so that way, when the time for martial law comes, that you will run to FEMA, and then FEMA's going to put you into like concentration camps and murder you.
Huh.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I like that one the most because FEMA is like one of the most inept government agencies that exists. It does its job in theory. Like if you are able to navigate, if in the disaster zone you are able to find a FEMA shelter, then they will give you the money and they will put you on the list and get you in contact with people to help you. It's just navigating that situation is borderline impossible, and there are a bunch of complete ineptitudes that exist within the agency, and I really want to hammer this home because the people that work for FEMA are very, very nice people. And I know that there was a situation in North Carolina where there were like armed vigilantes who were like so wildly conspiracized that they were like hunting down FEMA people who were trying to like clean out rubble because they thought that the FEMA people were there to like take their homes. And that's not what was happening. It was just completely inept response. And in defense of FEMA, in this rare defense of the government, they were reacting to Helene as a hurricane was actively bearing down on Florida, which thankfully didn't hit as hard as it was supposed to. But at the time, they were spread pretty thin because on top of that, they had some tornadoes out in Oklahoma that were pretty bad, and they had situations up in the Northwest with severe rainstorms and things. So like there's a lot going on, and they're spread thin. They're obviously underfunded because what government agency besides the Department of Defense isn't? And so that's where a lot of this like stems from. But I think it's just ironic because people have, over the past few years with the increase in natural disasters, have become so anti-FEMA that like that conspiracy theory in itself should just collapse because no one's running to a FEMA tent anymore. But I digress.
I don't like. Don't get me wrong. I don't trust FEMA to get me a new house, but I also don't think they're gonna put me in a death camp.
Right.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I think
like, I
they're
don't
gonna.
trust government agencies, but I also am like, eh.
Yeah, I think they're gonna hand me the $750 Visa gift card that you get to like buy groceries for the week, and they're probably gonna get me in contact with somebody to put me in a hotel room, and that's the end of the help that I expect from them.
Yeah, like I don't expect much, but I also know they're not gonna put me in a death camp. They can't afford that as a country.
Right, dude.
Well, and like Travis said, the people who work there actually want to help the people. It's just not run, organized, or funded well.
Right. It's in the circle of agencies that gets constantly cut because it's easy to cut. Like the department, the FEMA is one of them because I think fall into the Department of the Interior, and then like the Department of Transportation, like those kind of agencies we can constantly cut from because no one knows what the fuck they do. And so they get underfunded constantly, and then when things like this happen, people are like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Like when they're mad that like a bridge collapsed, but we've been underfunding the Department of Transportation for 40 years, and who's going to build the bridge? Because we can't just build them with goodwill and wishes. We got to have money.
Right.
Wait a minute, you're telling me right now that bridges aren't built with goodwill and wishes?
No, they're
Not unless you live in Vermont and then they're built out of dirt with goodwill and wishes and your neighbor's tractor.
Sounds like
or
Vermont knows
they could theoretically be built by bad will and wishes, in which case you will have to fight a troll to cross the bridge.
Correct.
I would like to pull out my drumstick.
Okay. All right. That's an hour and 5 minutes. I appreciate your time, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure. It was a fun little chit chat about all things conspiracy. Quick synopsis for people who may have gotten lost in the sauce, because I know I did. The New Jersey drones, not a big deal. Don't stress about it. It's inevitably either the Department of Defense or a Department of Defense contractor trying out something new. If the government really didn't know about it, they would have shot those bitches out of the sky by now. And the second thing to take away is that always choose the path of least resistance. If something seems really complicated, it's probably not that complicated, and look for an easier solution, because as Occam's razor tells you, the simpler of the two solutions is the most likely thing. I can't think of the word right now, but
or even like it's the most likely explanation almost
Yes.
always. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, because we're going to be off for a couple of weeks.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. When does that start?
Christmas.
It does start on Christmas Day?
I'm pretty sure.
When does Hanukkah start?
No, Hanukkah or 26th. Sorry.
The evening of Wednesday the 25th through Thursday January 2nd. Yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
It's just sundown the 25th, so like 26th. Either way, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, happy whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate what's the Yule? Yeah, Yule's a cool one. There's a couple of good ones. But either way, enjoy the time with your family. Enjoy the time off of work if you get that. And just be thankful for what we do have, because we don't know where life is going to take us. And that is the message of the holidays.
But
have a good night, gents.
you as well.
Have a good one.